So Chandler and Gaethje just happened and wasn't totally the outcome that I would have predicted for you. Now, before you say, hey, Chael, you got your dates wrong, I'm talking about in this regard. Chiesa versus Magny, stylistically, is Chandler versus Hooker. And a big problem that I've had, just in terms of a question mark, right? I mean, this is between those boys. This is between those two. But for when I'm sitting and listening to the pro-Chandler crowd that is saying Chandler is going to take him down and keep him there, I'm scratching my head and going, guys, we haven't seen the takedown, keep you down since 2003. Guys just scramble too well. They get up. Endurance has changed. The effort it takes to execute a proper takedown is such an exertion that we're not seeing guys able to do that, not to mention the defenses have caught up with the offenses. I mean, there's a reason. There's a very good and logical reason that you can take away the whole, I'm the powerful wrestler, I'm going to take you down at will, and you got to trace it all the way back to the very early turn of the century, quite literally. But we saw it today, so perhaps we need to have our eyes a little bit more open. I did not think that Chiesa could take Magny down that many times. Because now you're talking about taking him down at will. Not only did he take him down that many times, guys, I don't know that Chiesa tried to take Magny down and failed. And I just watched the fight. I don't remember him failing. He was able to close that distance. He was able to hide it with some strikes. He was hitting that TJ Dillashaw step around trip to that double, one of my favorite takedowns. I learned that from TJ Dillashaw, but you're seeing so many guys starting to execute it. I, personalized myself, was working on that because of TJ. In the gym, I was having great success. My career ended. I didn't get to go out and hit it, but a really great takedown. I saw Chiesa doing this, and I bring that to you because if you look at the offset in wrestling, on paper, the offset in wrestling between Chiesa and Magny, it is very equal to the offset in wrestling between Hooker and Chandler, as is the reach disadvantage and deficit that Chiesa had to deal with. It's very similar to the reach deficit that Chandler is going to deal with. I mean, in many ways, we just saw Hooker and Chandler fight. So I think that there's some things that likely Chandler is going to be inspired and juvenated by, but I also think there's some things that Hooker is going to be able to learn. Without even getting in there with Chandler yet, there's some things that Hooker's going to see and say, I don't want this to happen to me. Here's what Neil could have done different. I could be wrong, and those guys are so knee-deep in a quarantine and Fight Island and thinking about their weight cut and finishing up their media and stressed out of their mind about this competition, but they are able to digest, and they did able to take that in. I can assure you that Chandler and Hooker agree with me that stylistically our fight just happened. And I bring that to you also to shine up Chiesa's wheels. I mean, Chiesa is on a new streak with a new birth, a new fresh coat of paint over him. And he is looking so good, optimizing and capitalizing on that. Neil Magny is a tough night out. Neil Magny is a nasty, grimy 25 minutes. Neil Magny was the favorite going into this fight. I agree with that. I'm friends with Chiesa. I've never met Neil. I agree with that. If you were to bet on this and you were to use logic and you weren't going out to take a risk and you wanted to part with your money and put it on Magny, that was the smart thing to do. But Chiesa was able to break out a couple of new tricks. I talked about that Dillashaw trip by example a moment ago, but I haven't seen Chiesa do that before. That was a new weapon, and he hit it. He threw that right, he hit it, he steps that foot behind. Now he's attacking this side of the body to redirect to attack this side. It's a very effective trip, right? I mean, if you guys are wrestling fans and you want to know how to convert wrestling to MMA, that is a quintessential technique that you're going to see more and more of. I'm starting to see more and more of it in the practice room. I'm seeing coaches work. I didn't know what it was. I had to call TJ Dillashaw, go, walk me through this. I think I figured you out. Walk me through this. One of those things. And I was very impressed that Chiesa was able to do it. I was even surprised that Magny wasn't able to get off the bottom, and it wasn't from a lack of effort. Magny was working his ass off. Chiesa did a very good job. They had some scrambles that were flat fun to watch. One guy's going this way and back to this way and circle around the head and come in, and Chiesa was doing a great job with his knee. I'm talking about some of the technical parts of it, but if you guys want to go back and rewatch, Chiesa did such a good job with his knee. You want to be in side control. To maintain side control, it's your knees, your knee to his hip, and it can be either knee. But as he starts to get a little squirrely on you, sink one of those knees right to his hip, you'll hold him right in place. Chiesa just understood these things. He understood them and he did them, not to mention he did it in a main event on Fight Island on ESPN at an awkward time of day, on an awkward day of week, and he did it for 25 minutes against a freaking stud. A stud. I'm so happy to see good things happening for Neil Magny. And by the way, they're not going to stop. Neil's not going to come back and all of a sudden be undercard. He might have to be a co-main event to work himself back to main event, but this was a big win, and not to mention it was a treat for us fans. But I do want you to use it to foreshadow the future, which is right around the corner. I maintain my stance that at least stylistically, you just had Chandler take on Hooker. So what's going to be different? What can these athletes learn? And by the way, can Chandler hide and disguise his takedown threats and attempts as well as Chiesa? I mean, Chandler for a long period of time has fallen in love with these and done just fine with them. So how wrestling heavy is the game plan and the mindset of Chandler? Look, we don't know these things. I'm proposing some questions, but I do think, based on what we just saw, our expectation and our elevation of excitement just went up.